And a big Wednesday welcome to lcpioneers.com live, presented by PioStream. We're with you 4 days a week, Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. You can find us on Facebook Live. Easiest way, lcpioneers.com/live. It'll redirect you, and then watch all of our past shows archived to watch on demand at youtube.com/lcpios, keeping you connected with student athletes, coaches, alumni, and different members from the Lewis and Clark College community at large. Hi there, I'm Ryan Goff. I am the play-by-play voice and director of athletic communications for Lewis and Clark. We're the Pioneers out of Portland, Oregon, and competing with the Northwest Conference, a member of a 9-institution conference throughout Northwest Oregon and the state of Washington, and a chance for our student athletes to compete on a national scale. Over 430 institutions at the NCAA Division III level, so super excited to continue to see our student athletes have an opportunity on a national stage. And with Lewis and Clark's robust overseas study program, a chance for our student athletes and students alike to get an opportunity to explore the world. And it really truly is experiential liberal arts, so an opportunity for them to see what it's like overseas. And we've shared a lot of information too recently on overseas study, not only through the show, but also on our Instagram. You can find it at LC Pioneers on Instagram. Excited to talk to our guest today because he really raise the bar for what PioStream is now. Jose Nevarez will join us, and he is now the person in charge of all broadcast, all video at the University of Portland for the athletics department, and he did so in a very rapid way. Excited to kind of get his path post Lewis and Clark. He's a dual sport student athlete at Lewis and Clark when he graduated in 2013, but PioStream in its current form was started back in 2010. And the very next year, he took and ran with it and made it something that still stands as one of the best broadcasts in all of NCAA Division III. And I'm certainly thankful for him to really make it next level. We'll talk to him how he balanced all that, because we discuss rigor at Lewis and Clark and how time management works. And not only as a dual sport athlete, which means he's basically training almost every single month of the year, but also to be able to do what he's doing while also graduating with a computer science degree. So we'll talk to him in just a few moments. If you do have any questions for him or any of our guests, you can always contact us at sports@lclark.edu. And you can also put comments or questions in the Facebook Live chat below, and we will share those during the course of our show. Our email address again, sports@lclark.edu. A couple of things to keep you in the loop on. If you go to our website, lcpioneers.com, we are currently unveiling some of the incoming 2020-21 student athletes. There's been a lot of things going on, as you can imagine, over the course of the off season, including trying to balance, what the fall season was going to look like. The Northwest Conference announcing a week and a half ago that all competition for fall sports and early winter, including basketball and swimming, will be postponed or suspended until spring. And so we're still getting a lot of the names out from our incoming student athletes, and we're excited to share those with you at lcpioneers.com. Please check those out now. Our latest release involving our men's basketball student athletes, as head coach Tim McCrory is welcoming in 4 new players for this upcoming year. And then, as I mentioned too, follow us on both Instagram and on Twitter. You can find us on both. LC Pioneers, our handle there. And then we'll continue to make updates via our website, lcpioneers.com/COVID. That information specifically regarding the reopening for fall 2020. So we'll be sure to keep you in the loop with that as well. And so with that said, let's bring in our guest for today, a 2013 graduate of Lewis and Clark, and now the director of all things broadcast at the University of Portland. We're welcoming in Jose Nevarez to the show. Jose, appreciate you taking the time for us on this Wednesday and getting to really have a chance to kind of tell your story for the first time. I've done it personally because PioStream was so close to my heart when I came to Lewis and Clark in 2010. I haven't had a chance to share your story as much in the public realm. Before we get into PioStream, though, as I mentioned, you were a dual sport student athlete at Lewis and Clark. Describe your path to Lewis and Clark and why you ultimately chose to compete for the Pioneers.
Hey, Ryan. Thanks for having me. Kind of weird to be on the front side of the camera. That's not usually my comfort zone. I'm usually in the back. But it was an interesting route to get to Lewis and Clark. I think I actually remember getting a letter from the track coach at the time, David Fix, just, telling me about the school, telling me about the program. Eventually got in touch with Keith Woodard as well. And so he invited me out to visit. And so I came out to see it. And I was it was such a pretty campus. To be honest, I really came here. I was like, oh, I'll take a free trip to Portland. Why not? But it ended up being that I really just fell in love with the city and with the campus. Keith was awesome. Fix was awesome. And I think it was just really a place I saw that I could really develop as a runner.
Well, and we'll talk a little bit more about competition because being a dual sport athlete in any sport is certainly difficult, but trying to compete all season while balancing all the stuff that you're involved in is certainly a challenge as well. When you tell people, especially now that you're at the University of Portland, which also has a beautiful campus, what do you talk about in terms of kind of the day-to-day to being at Lewis and Clark, whether you were competing or in the classroom? What is it like to be around that campus and to be just 6 miles from downtown Portland? We talk about that all the time with our student athletes and our recruits. What was it like for you to experience it firsthand?
I think it was especially now in my current role, I think it was an invaluable experience because it allows me to really relate to our student athletes at a much deeper level because in a way I was there with them. It was not the rigor that a D1 athlete takes at times with all the extra things that they have to do at times, but it's very similar. We have to balance class, you have to balance um, your practice, weight training if you have it, if you have to get treatment at the training room, and then in my case also how to balance a job that I can't honestly don't remember how many hours it was anymore. I'm going to stick with the 20, which is what my students are allowed to work now. So it was definitely a very interesting experience, but I think it was also very valuable because, as you know, to put on a live production, it takes a lot of multitasking and organizational skills that you really got to just balance all these different times. And so it's really was really important for me to learn that stuff.
So let's discuss PioStream. It was started in its current form with multiple cameras and more of a regular TV production in 2010, 2011. You took over the following year. How did you get involved, and what were some of the things that appealed to you about this idea of running the video streaming platform for Lewis and Clark?
So I actually started working in the department with the sports information department at the time with Kristen Martin. So I was actually running the shot clock at basketball games. And I did that for the whole winter season, and then kind of took some time off of working with her, particularly because we got into track season. And so then the next fall, when I got to campus for fall camp for cross country, she just comes over to me and she's like, "Hey, you like to play with technology and you like video production, right?" I'm like, "Well, I've made the slideshow for our banquets a couple of times, and yeah, I like technology." She's like, "Well, I got this box and I don't know what to do with it, and I got some cameras that it's supposed to like get plugged in, and I think this computer makes some graphics. You want to play with it?" I was like, "Sure, sounds better than the shot clock. I'll take it." And so I started kind of just toying around with it. I think if I remember right, maybe I can't remember if you and I talked at some point. You kind of walked me through some stuff, and then your partner Joey also had helped me a little bit with what you guys knew, and from there it kind of just became this obsession of, all right, how do I get this to be better, and just adding little by little, introducing some other stuff, a lot of jimmy rigging, as you know, just trying to figure out how do we get this stuff to work and make it look like it does on TV.
Jose Nevarez joining us on lcpioneers.com live. He now runs everything broadcast for the University of Portland, but started as a 2013 graduate at Lewis and Clark. And I keep bringing that because I'm so eager to talk to you about the path to getting to Portland and being in charge of all of their production now in the senior administration. But the one question I have for you is, I mean, when we first started PioStream, to get a scoreboard graphic, we're refreshing a PNG file in PowerPoint, and no one is going to probably follow what I'm saying. But point being, it's so much easier now, and part of that reason is Lewis and Clark made such an investment because of the work that you did, that they believed in us to be able to put it together, ESPN3 quality productions as best we can. I'm curious, what was some of your prouder things that you did to really refine PioStream, whether it was a specific game where it showcased or it was a specific season or event? What do you remember most about those little tweaks that you made to the PioStream platform?
The bug was definitely one. It took me forever to finally get it to where we could update it in real time. It wasn't pulling scoreboard data, unfortunately, so I never got the clock there. But that was a that was a much tougher challenge. But I think definitely getting the score bug, integrating a little bit of I'm blanking on the software now. I think it was my last year. We we bought some plugin for the graphic system, so that it allowed us to have a little bit more in-depth information on the scoreboard for football in terms of what down it was, how many yards to the scrimmage line, timeouts, and that kind of stuff. And that definitely, I think, upped the production quality quite a bit. And then I recall having, I think it was basketball season. Occasionally, I think you popped in once or twice to do serve as a play-by-play for a game, but we started getting a buddy of mine, Luca Rella, to start doing some of those games, and so that was pretty fun to bring him into the mix. But I think the proudest one that I recall production-wise probably had to be the time that I streamed a track meet while also participating in it. That was a that was an interesting day, trying to when I was not warming up for my race or cooling down, I was up in the press box trying to run the stream.
That is absolutely crazy. I mean, we've been trying to balance doing field sports at the Diamonds for softball and baseball, but then get back also to do track and field and have all of those going simultaneously. I can't imagine being in the race and having done it, but I also think it's great because one of the things I'm most proud of about what Lewis and Clark does is we do stream all of our events, including track and field. And so that's important because I want to make sure that as many events that happen on campus, we can broadcast to the world. The one thing you mentioned is as you're trying to figure out this bug, which is the scoreboard display on the screen that everyone is accustomed to now, so you have to have one, right? And you want to make that challenge. It sounds like you're kind of engineering, and you finished with your computer science degree at Lewis and Clark. I'm curious, what was it that made you choose that major, and how have you seen your engineering background kind of come into play now that you're almost 7 years removed?
So I always want to do something in either the sciences or engineering. And so I kind of went all over the place in terms of majors. I think at one point I was declared as a chemistry major, and then I moved to physics and then math. And then after all those classes, I started kind of dwindling down that I think I enjoyed the computer science aspect the most. It got to a point where some of the classes just became way too theoretical for me. I'm a little bit more practical and logical, so I needed to kind of see it and feel it. And so computer science was great because I wrote some code and then I saw what my program did. And there were some great classes that I took in the computer science department. There was an amazing network security class I took with Jens Mache that really became probably one of the most important classes I took at Lewis and Clark because it has helped me so much in my current role. I've been to so many conferences now where they talk about video producers are now part IT people because we have to deal with so much networking in some areas and getting devices to talk to each other. Sometimes I find myself writing a little code for our graphics machine so that I can make it do what I need it to do, which is awesome because I can manipulate it as much as I want and not be limited to having to try to hire somebody or rack my brain on how to do it or just give up completely on it. But because of my computer science background, it's really allowed me to implement that and really take our productions to an even higher level.
So you described to us this experience of competing and also running a track and field stream. I have to imagine that is a lot to do in part with how you were supported by coaches and people in the administration. What do you recall about the way that came across and how people kind of built you up and made sure that you could pursue these things?
That's a great question. And it was, without a doubt, I could have not done this without the help of so many people in that department. Definitely Kristen Martin, the former sports information director, Sharon Sexton, which I believe she's still there, Keith Wooder with his support and understanding that, hey, running is not going to be for the rest of my life, but this could be. And so he supported me very much so in that. Judy McMullen also was a very big part of my life there. And so they all really collaborated together to make sure that I had what I needed to set myself up for success. And I think that just, really talks to the community aspect of the Lewis and Clark athletic department and Lewis and Clark as a whole, but particularly in athletics. It's kind of like we are at UP, we're a tight-knit family, and I think the same goes for the Lewis and Clark athletic department. And so everyone collaborated and worked together and made sure that I had everything I needed to be successful.
Jose Nevarez joining us on lcpioneers.com live. You can watch us live on Facebook Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, and all of our shows archived at youtube.com/lcpios. All right, I'm curious. We talked about you now being the assistant athletic director of broadcast operations at UP. And there was a step in between there where you had a chance to intern with the Portland Timbers. What was that experience like, and what were some of the really neat things that came out of that internship opportunity?
Yeah, so my senior year, over the winter break, um, I decided that's kind of when I really decided, like, I think I want to pursue this. And Sharon and Kristen were really kind of pushing me on it as well too. They're like, you should really pursue this as a career. And so I found an internship application on the Timbers website, and so I applied. And at the time, I actually applied for a marketing internship because that was the only one I think that was still open or available. And so I applied for that. Figured I probably wouldn't hear about it. I mean, who's gonna look at some random kid from the D3 school in Southwest Portland that thinks he knows what he's talking about when it comes to streaming? But I ended up actually getting a call from the now vice president for broadcasting, Matt Smith, and he's like, "Hey, so I saw you apply for a marketing internship, but how about a video production internship?" I was like, "Well, that's actually what I wanted, but I didn't see that available." I think they had just talked about it or posted it or something. And so I met with him, and it was pretty much right away we connected. And so I started interning with them. That was the first year that the NWSL Portland Thorns became to fruition. So that really allowed me to get an extra little bit of experience that I might have not if I was only working with the Timbers. Because on the Timber side, I worked with doing some E&G type of content, going out to practice, shooting to practice, a couple of graphic design stuff. And then on game days, I would serve as a red hat. For those of you who don't know, it's the person that tells the producer what's going on in the field so you can communicate and make sure everything's on time. But with it, on the Thorn side, the great part about it was that they didn't have a TV deal. They didn't have a 52-foot truck coming in to do their games. And so Matt and the staff there put together a streaming setup. And so I was actually able to partake in that. So I started producing some Portland Thorns broadcasts towards the end of my tenure there. And to this day, I still actually have to go over there tonight and produce a Portland Timbers 2 game. I've been involved with them ever since. I've served anything from a red hat to a VAR engineer to a producer. It's really been a great thing for me to have. Just keeps me networked in the industry. And so that internship was an invaluable experience. I mean, it taught me how to really take things to the next level, how to pay more attention to more details, really helped me get my timing down, as you know, extremely important. So yeah, it was an awesome opportunity.
Well, you'll be proud of me. I've already taught my whole family that the most powerful person at any sporting event is the red hat because they can start and stop everything. It's a really interesting job. I will ask you this then. You go from Timbers, internship, PioStream, and now you've been at University of Portland for quite a long time. And as you mentioned to me at the top of the broadcast, senior administration. What do you like about being part of the West Coast Conference, being part of an NCAA Division I, and really leading the vision for how broadcasts are done at a school like Portland?
It's been a remarkable experience. I still sometimes think back to my days when I first got there, where we had to roll around this fly pack that weighed a ton, and so we had to set up everything, every single game, similar to what we had to do with Lewis and Clark. So it wasn't by any means not something that I wasn't used to, but I was so fortunate to get such great support from the administration there, for our Vice President for Athletics, Scott Lakem, and my supervisor, Senior Associate Athletic Director, Jason Bro. They really saw the value in what video could bring to us, to our department, and so they really helped invest. And so any idea I brought forth, they always challenged me a little bit to get creative with it, but they always supported me. And so we went from moving around all this gear, having to produce baseball games out of the back of a U-Haul truck, which is always a little interesting with the weather, to now we have a centralized control room that I built and brought in all our facilities. So we're tapped into everything. And like you said, we're leading the West Coast Conference in most mid-major schools in that realm. And the West Coast Conference is a great conference. We're made up of very collaborative teams. It's great competition, a lot of friendly banter between some of the teams, but everyone's friends. We have a pretty good group of video managers that we talk every once in a while and share ideas, and it's been a great experience to see the next level up from in the college athletics world.
Well, let's close with this. When you look back at your experience at Lewis and Clark, whether it was moments in competition or just time with your teammates, or whether it was extracurriculars like PioStream or SAC, what are some of your just fondest memories that really have stayed with you as you've moved on now? Like I mentioned, 7 years graduated.
There's a lot. Some that definitely are not appropriate for this this interview, but I think I hadn't even thought about it for a little bit until we were talking a little earlier. I think the greatest moment of my athletic career at Lewis and Clark was actually not related to PioStream. I forgot about one. I think it was either the Spring Break Open or the Invite track meet at Lewis and Clark. We were running the 4x4 last meet for the last event, as you know, and so I think it was Kevin Carpenter, Pete Fisher, Lamar Curry, and I on the 4x4. I think we were all tired. We're just ready to get done with it, and so we start the race. We're probably in the middle of the pack, and then Pete just had the race of his life. I can't remember what time he ran, but he really put us back into place to where we could actually win it. And so then Lamar gets the baton, and he starts making his lap, and he puts us in about second or third place. And so, man, I'm getting just so jazzed, just waiting for him to come down that. So the moment I took that baton, I just I don't know what came over me, but it was amazing because we actually ended up winning that race. And so I remember coming down the last 150, and the whole finish line is lined up with our teammates just cheering. That was probably definitely one of the greatest experiences that I experienced.
Yeah, I could just imagine. Great story, great conversation, and from me specifically, thank you for all the help you've given me in making PioStream live between my first stint and my last stint, because it is such a big part of my life. It wouldn't be here without you, and I'm truly grateful for that. Jose Nevarez, thanks so much for joining us on lcpioneers.com live.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, it's amazing. Full circle. He took and ran with PioStream. I got super lucky and super fortunate that at the time no one had really looked at Division III broadcasts and said, hey, how can we broaden it and how can we make it something more like what you see on TV? I remember specifically watching other streams that were put out with just a webcam from a computer built in, just flipped the other way to watch the whole field of play. And my experience in broadcast made me think that we could do this. And luckily, as you mentioned, Joey Kieran, who now is the program director for KSKR in Roseburg, which is where he went after football season during that 2011 football season, which is what Jose was talking about. I even came back and I think did one random basketball game because I was starting a radio station in Southern Oregon. Jose really took it to the next level, kept it afloat, showed that the investment was worth it, because we were putting the things together in 2010-11 with rubber bands, duct tape, and Radio Shack cameras. And I remember coming back and learning that they had some professional broadcast equipment, or certainly semi-professional broadcast equipment. And I was so grateful that they took the leap. And Kristen was a huge part of that too. And it's great to hear him talk about the support from people like Sharon, who are still there to this day. It's really neat. So watch a UP broadcast too. My friend Travis Demers, who now is the radio voice of the Portland Trailblazers, he was doing a Portland Pilots TV game, and I remember watching him and just seeing all of the ways that Jose has made that a top-notch professional broadcast. And as he talked about building a control room by himself, that's certainly no small feat, and pretty impressive. So yeah, it was a great interview, and it's one of those ones that I wish could have taken a long time, but it's certainly in my wheelhouse as well. Tomorrow, a re-air. We're excited to bring you back our conversation with head strength and conditioning coach Ange Dendis. It's Coach Ange. Everyone knows her if you've been a student athlete at Lewis and Clark over the last half to full decade. Coach Ange is by and large one of the biggest influencers of our student athletes, and we have a chance to talk to her about how she got to Lewis and Clark and some of the aspects that she truly enjoys about being that person for our student athletes. And then Josh Spagman will join us on Friday. That'll be a live interview and a chance to talk to a former Lewis and Clark men's swimmer who is recently married. As of a week from our interview, he was married on August 21st. And so I'll have a chance to talk to him not only about his past at Lewis and Clark, but he's now a medical student at Mayo Clinic. And so with the pandemic still in full force, certainly within the United States, excited to hear what his experience has been like. And you can see next week, too, lots of conversations. Alexandra Coons from women's cross country, Christina Williams from women's basketball, and then we'll also talk to Vice President of Student Affairs, basically the person in charge of all of student life, Robin Holmes Sullivan, too. We'll have a chance to talk to her the week the classes start as everything gets underway on August 31st. So a fun show. Big thanks to you for watching. Big thanks to Jose for taking the time to join us, and we look forward to having more conversations with you, student athletes, coaches, alumni, and different members from the community at large on lcpioneers.com live, Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. Be sure to watch all of our past shows available on demand at youtube.com/lcpios. And until we talk to you again, I'm Ryan Goff. Thanks for having fun with us. We'll talk to you soon for more of the show. Until then, have a great rest of your Wednesday. Goodbye, everybody.
I'm Casey Jones, and I teach a range of classes: general chemistry, organic chemistry, and also some advanced classes. And I have a research lab that currently I have 4 students working with me as part of the Rogers program. The summer experience is a way to get really deeply involved in the science that is here and be able to start to define what might be what you want to do next. So the brown bag gives our students a chance to explain their research and really show the context and the application of what they're doing to a very broad range of students and faculty.
It's interesting to be able to communicate to other scientists what your work is, and it forces you to learn how to talk about your subject so that not only experts in your field can understand it, but others can understand it as well, which I just believe is a good life skill.
To talk about your research in a way that anybody can understand it really is a valuable experience, and it's something that you don't get a lot of practice for except in these contexts. Because oftentimes you're giving a presentation to a classroom filled with people who know basically the same things that you do, but in a brown bag, you have to be able to explain and provide motivation for everything that you're working on and why it's important and why it's relevant to be studying.
Hi, I'm Nick Lombardi. Something I've learned at Winterim this year is how to communicate a vision.
My biggest takeaway from Winterim is probably the networking. Getting to talk to everybody, connect with people for the future is one of the most valuable things, and I did Winterim last year, came back for more this year.
I think a way in which my liberal arts education has really helped me and my group formulate our ideas is that concept of critical thinking and having many different backgrounds. Me being an econ major and my 2 group mates being chemistry majors, we really get that well-rounded background, well-rounded ideas.
I think overall it's absolutely worth doing. You find yourself not only being more prepared for, say, well, this next semester, on top of being more prepared for life in general.